Jimmy on the beat, boy. Jimmy on the beat, boy. Jimmy on the beat, boy.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? I'm John J. II here with Musa Basal, and this is Double Coverage, the official NFL podcast of the Gin Sports Network. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on a Thursday night. A little bit of a late show. For those of you guys listening, it's probably going to be tomorrow, probably going to be some other day. But I want to thank everybody for tuning in and checking out the DCP because there's a lot going on in the world of the NFL. So, Musa, let me ask you first off, how are you doing today? How have you been doing since the lull started post Super Bowl? How you been doing, man?
You know, it's been good. It was nice to take a little bit of a break, relax, get away from football a little bit, pull an Aaron Rodgers, just kind of not as much as, away from football as him, but it's still like not as in tune with it, tracking every move. So it was nice for that small little break.
Yeah, it was a good breath of fresh air. And Aaron Rodgers is going to be a topic of discussion for tonight to bring that up and bring that analogy in because he's one of the guys that has really been put under a microscope since the offseason has begun. And obviously there's a lot of players moving around. There's trade deadlines that have been made, and then there's different players moving around. You got draft picks, draft stocks coming out, and we're already looking forward to the 2023 draft, which seems crazy, because we're already looking forward to that preseason, etc. And there's a lot of things to look forward to. There's a lot of expansion. There's a lot going on. Okay, basically it's like the Wild West. There's a lot going on. So we're going to dive into everything that we have for you tonight in depth. And thank you again for joining us. We're going to talk about, first off, we want to talk about Lamar Jackson. He is the topic of discussion first. He has the first slot. And the reason is he has requested from multiple teams. Basically, he's putting a banner out there saying, hey, guys, I would love to have a max contract. I'd love to be the main guy. Let me be your franchise quarterback. I want to be, the head guy. But I'm going to command a very high price tag. And he has not received that from any team, not even his own team in the Baltimore Ravens. So it's a bit concerning for Lamar. I think he's kind of getting backed into a corner a little bit. What does he do? Does he remain a free agent and stay that way until someone pays his fees? Or does he, take a little bit of a pay cut? I guess he has some options on the table for him, and there's a lot of different aspects of that deal, that potential deal, to pick apart. So, Musa, what do you think about this at face value? Where do you see Lamar Jackson going, and what do you think of the entire situation?
I think he will take a pay cut to a team that is a quarterback away from a Super Bowl. I think that's the way he takes his pay cut. I don't think any team is willing to pay him that maxed out contract, that fully guaranteed contract, just because of how much of a risk it is for a quarterback like Lamar, who is a running quarterback who is not afraid to take hits. I think that's a big concern in the back of a lot of these teams' minds. And unless a team is like ready to go all in on the Super Bowl and all they need is like a QB, it's going to be hard for him to get that super crazy contract that he's looking for.
Yeah, he's going to have to make a decision, and he's got agents, he's got people in his corner that are giving him good advice. I think the worry is from a quarterback such as Lamar Jackson, he's kind of earned somewhat of that rapport amongst, other quarterbacks in the league where he is somewhat more or less the man. People look at Lamar, he's the man in Baltimore. He's the next quarterback. He's the next guy, to go all the way because of his, versatility, his weapons, his ability to pass the ball, but also his ability to create on the ground. We've talked about that numerous times here on this show. But it's like you said, and I think it's becoming a thing of the past somewhat, where you're seeing guaranteed contracts, you're seeing maxed out 5-year deals, and you got players that are uncertain about what they want to do. You got players moving around, playing for 3 different teams, got 3 different jerseys on for Baker Mayfield in one season. So there's a lot of movement, there's a lot of things, moving parts. And it's just a lot for a team to sign on to because they're sacrificing so much of their salary cap. That sacrifices, who they can pick in the draft because those draft picks are going to be, they're going to be commanded price tags depending on where they go in the draft. So there's a lot of things that you got to consider if you're one of these teams because everyone has a salary cap. Yep. Every team has a salary cap. Contrary to popular belief, every team has a salary cap that they have to keep in mind, and they have a bottom line that they have to maintain. And COVID threw a big wrench at that. But, being out of the, we're basically emerging from the COVID era. We're in the post-COVID era, I would say. And it's starting to tighten up a little bit. I guess, what do you have to say about that?
I mean, also, you see a lot of people complaining about Lamar doesn't have any weapons in Baltimore. If you want weapons, you can't have a maxed out contract. It's just, like you said, the salary cap is a hindrance to that. All the best teams that are winning Super Bowls, their QB isn't on a maxed out contract 99% of the time. They are taking pay cuts or they're on a rookie scale contract. They have a friendly contract to the team, which allows them to go and get them weapons. So it's just all about, it's a balance and a trade-off. How much do you want to get paid and how much do you want support around you?
Yeah, it's true. Another argument that has come up is that Lamar Jackson is very injury prone, and that's a possibility. I think that's a good point to make. So there's a quote here. Jackson's missed 10 of his last 22 possible games played since the start of the 2021 season, including the playoffs, because of an injury, a bone bruise in his ankle in 2021, and a sprained PCL tendon in his knee in 2022, after missing none due to injury during his first 3 seasons from 2018 to 2020. Yeah. So some important statistics there. Is he a liability for our offense? If we're going to be sending him a guaranteed maxed out contract, that's going to probably be pushing us into the red as far as salary cap goes anyways. Is that worth the risk? Is that worth the liability? It's basically a gamble that you're going to be taking on it. And if you got his own team, his own fan base, and everybody around him in the Baltimore Ravens that is not willing to take that risk, then what says any other team in the NFL is willing to take that risk?
Yeah, for him, he's injury prone. He's a run first guy. He likes to take hits. He likes contact. It's just such a high risk that I don't think any team is gonna take. It's just not a smart move for any team to do.
Yeah, the fate of Lamar Jackson is up to only him. Lamar Jackson? What is he going to determine for his fate? And if that means taking a quote-unquote demoralizing pay cut, then I think that's what you got to do. You're a young guy, young quarterback, very fresh in the league. I would say still has made splashes, but maybe not as big of splashes as he might have expected to, or his critics or his fans might have expected him to up until this point. Being a 5-6 year guy in the NFL, you got a lot of years left. Okay, I mean, you got to take contact, and he welcomes contact, to allude to your point. And I think teams like that, but I think that also brings into the realm of possibility injuries, and that being a potential too. And you could be down for 2-3 weeks minimum in a lot of cases, or you could be out the whole season. Then you're still locked in that max contract. Obviously, different parameters come into the deal at that point. But either way, Lamar Jackson has to make a choice for him and only him. So. That's basically the gist of it. That's the gist of the Lamar Jackson fiasco, I guess, if we want to call it a fiasco. It's just been raising a lot of eyebrows, because I like Lamar Jackson. I think he's a great quarterback. Do I think he's the best in the league? No. Do I think he has a lot of versatile weapons that a lot of, maybe even majority of quarterbacks don't have? Yeah, I think he does. I think he has a lot of assets, and I would say he has more assets than liabilities. But is that worth the max contract?
I mean, I'll speak on it to my perspective. I remember last year when there was talks of a trade and people were saying the Lions should go out and get Lamar. I was against that. I don't think the Lions should pay him that much kind of money, because it's not worth it for this Lions franchise. It's not. As a person, if I was a GM, I wouldn't want to give him that maxed out, that fully guaranteed any contract like that, because it's just too high of a risk.
Yeah, there are critics, too, saying that Lamar Jackson is not at the point in his career where he can really be commanding the kind of money that he is asking for, which is, hundreds of millions of dollars over the course of a, 5-year contract, which is somewhat ridiculous. I guess it's not ridiculous in this day and age of paying these athletes, stupid amounts of money to play the game of football or play any sport. But, I guess know your worth. It's important to, not undervalue yourself, but maybe be open to negotiations. Don't be so hard-nosed and be like, hey, I'm going to need, a $200 million 5-year contract. Like we got to work something out there. And if you have them work around you and your parameters, and you're very stuck and tight-knit in your ability to move within that potential deal, I think you got to take what you can get right now, raise your stock as far as what you're worth in the NFL, make some more splashes, continue to play. If you're healthy right now, continue to play and do your best. Maybe go to a team where you can have some versatility, maybe have some weapons, take a little bit of a pay cut, but you have more weapons to deal with, and the franchise has more salary space to work with. I think there's a lot of options for growth there, and it might be humbling for Lamar, but I think it'll work out for him in the long run if he decides to do that.
I think another option is to take a shorter contract, less money, but
there you go.
What that does is it allows for all these other quarterbacks to get their higher contracts, and that allows you to negotiate a higher contract. You raise your stock in those few years. You see what these other quarterbacks are getting paid, and it gives you that opportunity. Hey, these guys are paying this much. I'm better than these players. I want more money than these players, and it gives them that negotiation factor.
Makes a lot of sense. It's going to be interesting to see where this one goes. A lot of it still developing, still unraveling, and we'll be following it every step of the way. Let's move on. Let's talk about Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, one of the grandfathers still remaining in the NFL. We talk about him all the time on this show as well. Seems like these guys, I mean, mostly Aaron Rodgers, but I mean, Lamar can be thrown there too, and there's a number of guys that can be thrown into this category of people that are basically tabloid NFL players. And they like the tabloids. They like being in the news. They like being on, the Pat McAfee show and going on there and talking shit about the league. And that's great. I think that's awesome. Stir the pot. And if you have the position, and you've been in the league long enough, like Aaron Rodgers, I think you have the ability to go out there and do that and stir the pot a little bit. But it's a complicated issue with Aaron Rodgers as well. It seems per sources that he is making a move to the New York Jets. It hasn't been solidified yet. They're dragging their feet with this deal. It hasn't really been progressing as fast as some may have expected it to. But I guess real quick, face value, what do you have to say about the Aaron Rodgers ordeal?
As I'm sure you already know, I hate Aaron Rodgers. He's just one of those people I just do not like. I don't care where he goes, he's gonna suck, and that's my stance on it. I feel like that's how I feel about it. But unbiasedly, it's just I think everyone's just kind of tired of it. It's just like been drawn out over and over and over again. Like at this point, just trade the guy to where he wants to go, and just let him do what he wants to do at this point. It's just kind of tiring. I think, and everyone's kind of just a little bit tired of it.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think I'm a little bit worn out about it. I think that he was almost overstaying his welcome this past season in Green Bay, playing there again after we had known publicly, and he's somewhat of a drama queen. I think you can go out there and say that. I think that adds to his hateability as well, because I can personally say I'm not a big Aaron Rodgers fan myself. People in my circle are big Aaron Rodgers fans, and to them I wish them Godspeed in their recovery. But it is what it is. He is undoubtedly he's a mogul in the NFL right now. He has the experience, he has the years, he has the track record, the resume. So we know he has all that, and we can't really take that away from him regardless of how we feel about him. But there's no doubting this deal is monumental. It's monumental for the framework of the NFL. If he does leave and go to the Jets, who takes his spot? Who basically takes that throne? And those are big shoes to fill when Aaron Rodgers came in, when he had to fill those shoes that were left vacant by Brett Favre.
Yeah. To touch on that, I can't comment on the whole situation between Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre because I wasn't in tune with the NFL back then. So I can't really speak on the Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre relationship and how that went down. And from what I've seen, I don't feel like Jordan Love is very comparable to that situation. So it's all a strange situation to me, and I don't think we know how Jordan Love is going to play. We don't know how he's going to fare. We don't know if he's the next guy up, or they're just going to end up trying to draft another QB in another few years. But I think one thing is pretty clear to us is I think the Green Bay Packers are in a rebuild now. They need to take a step back and rebuild this team.
Yeah, that's very true.
And you can't do that with Aaron Rodgers. He's too old. He's way past his prime. It's just not sustainable to keep him.
Yeah, it's arguable that he is somewhat washed up, and we can kind of see glimpses of that. Granted, there are very high potential rates for quarterbacks getting older into their 40s. We've seen it happen before, and you can even argue that Tom Brady overstayed his welcome and Ben Roethlisberger stayed his welcome. I think that's the last thing that these guys, as grandfathers of the NFL, want, is to be that guy that overstays their welcome and basically overstays their legacy, because it tarnishes their legacy to a certain extent.
I don't want to say he's like washed up. Like obviously he's not in his prime, but I don't think at his age you can stand and stay for a rebuild. You won't make it to the end of that rebuild, especially on the contract that he's going to be on, because he is Aaron Rodgers. It's not smart for a team to rebuild with Aaron Rodgers. It's a team that needs to go now, and they want to win a Super Bowl in the next probably 3 years maximum, but preferably the next 1 or 2 years.
Definitely. We had a little bit of news here, a little bit of an excerpt here on this deal and this potential deal to the Jets for Aaron Rodgers. The source believes that much of this deal remains done. Thanks to weeks of legwork early on, the Jets want to address the financial component, quote-unquote, Rodgers' $58.3 million option payment due between now and week 1, which that's crazy. We'll talk about that in a sec. And the belief that is that both sides have worked on that part. The feeling around the league is that multiple high picks, but not necessarily a first rounder, might just be able to get it done. Yahoo Sports' report that 2024 protections a conditional pick if Rodgers were to retire after this coming season, for example, are a hang-up that makes a lot of sense, because executives I spoke to early in the process believed that would be an issue for the Jets. Rodgers himself admitted on the Pat McAfee show that he was leaning towards retirement at one point this offseason before the famed darkness retreat. We all remember the last game that Rodgers played that we saw against the Detroit Lions. He wanted to switch jerseys with, I don't know, who was that? Did he want to switch jerseys with Jamal? Who was that?
It might have been Jamal.
Okay, I think it was Jamal.
I can't see him liking anyone else on the Lions, to be honest with you.
Right. And Jamal had history in Green Bay, so that would make sense. And Rodgers said, hey, no, I'm going to hold on to this one. Okay, and that was blown out of proportion too, as most things Rodgers says is and are. That's just the case with that. So there is still a possibility. They're dragging their feet with the deal. He's uncertain. There's certain things and contingencies. Okay, how much life does this guy have in the NFL? How much longer can he play? Basically, how much longer can he compete? So that's a stipulation that has to be worked into the contract too. This guy could be retiring. We don't even know it.
And I think right now the Packers just want to get what they can for Rodgers. I mean, his draft stock has tanked after last season, and they're just. I mean, obviously he doesn't want to be there. They don't. I don't think they want to move on at this point. It's probably the best option for them to move on. So they just want to get what they can get and just move on from it.
Yeah, definitely. I think I see somewhat of a Tom Brady scenario here. We can see it playing out exactly that way. If Rodgers does stay in the NFL, I believe he does move on to the Jets or any other team that hasn't that maybe has put pen to paper on a deal with them. But you see that happen quite often. I mean, you see a franchise guy that's been with that team for 10 plus years, sometimes even 15 plus years. And there's friction. I mean, you get to know the people and you can have some fun. You can have some ruffling of feathers, but it gets to a point where it's like, I've been here long enough. I'm going to be commanding this team. We're going to run this team how I want to. If we want a trade to happen, it's going to have to go through me first. And then, Belichick's, he's kind of he's an administrative guy. He's not going to take too lightly to that. So he's going to be like, hey, Tom, you might have to take a back seat here, buddy. And I don't think Brady liked that. And I think that's where the scuffle happened. That could be happening here with Matt LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers, or even any other higher-ups, where these guys are commanding more. They're commanding more commanding power, if that makes sense, and they're not getting it.
And I think worst case scenario, the Jets get Aaron Rodgers, they draft their next QB, and they actually let him develop under Rodgers. I think Rodgers would be more open to developing a QB at the Jets in a year or two when, he knows it's towards the end of his career. If it's not his replacement, because he's going to be there as long as he wants to be and as long as he's performing. But they do need to think of the future, and I think the Packers thought of it just a tad bit too early. I don't think Rodgers thinks he's going to be playing until he's 50 or 60. So I think that wouldn't be the worst option for the Jets as well.
50 or 60. I mean, realistically, Musa, that could be a possibility in our lifetimes. Or do you think it is that we see a quarterback reach the age of 60? Or any player? Tom
Brady might come back, just saying.
Oh, man. Well, if that's the case, Tom Brady's got a lot of time to come back. You never know. His kid could turn 18 and be like, oh, kids are out of the house. Going back to the league. Who wants to sign me?
I'm sure a team would sign him for a year.
Oh, man.
Put a 60-year-old Brady behind a crazy offensive line. He's good.
Oh, man. If he stays loose, man, stays active, shit. That's
he already looks great for his age, so I don't know. 60's pushing it. I think we could see a QB reach 40, probably 48.
Yeah, 48, maybe push 50 if you really stay healthy and stay limber. But it kind of seems crazy right now. But then again, seeing a quarterback reach the age of 40, I mean, we've seen players that got old, back in the day, back in the the gridiron days of the 70s and 80s. But to see that happen as more of something that's commonplace now in the modern era, it's not likely. It's not seen very often.
Also, but with the way the NFL is going into a more safe route, all player safety, really protecting the quarterbacks, it could be a possibility in the future.
You never know. Anything's a possibility. Got to keep your eyes open, keep your ears open to everything that could happen. So we'll keep an eye on this Aaron Rodgers deal too. I'm sure they'll be penciling in a deal some way, somehow, because it's getting to the point where he's going to have to make a decision one way or another, and they're going to have to put pens to paper and start signing dotted lines if they want things to happen. So we'll look forward to that. Let's talk about the Detroit Lions real quick. Let's just tease it real quick because there's a lot to unpack here with the Detroit Lions. But what do you got for me as far as the Detroit Lions as we see fit right now?
I mean, we could go all night. I just want to talk about. I think a lot of Lions fans are just so grateful that a lot of these. You see a lot of players that left during the Matt Patricia era. They lost a lot of players, and Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell are bringing them back home to Detroit. One of the players, Graham Glasgow, can't be more excited. That's my boy. I've talked about him a lot on here before. Got out of Denver. Is coming back to Detroit for the prime time season. And it's a great time for him to be a Lions. He's here to stay, and he's going to see that Super Bowl win. Talking about possibilities, it's ever more looking likely right now with these Detroit Lions. And I could go all night on every move they've been making and what moves they need to make in the draft, but like I said, we'd be here all night, and I think some of you guys want to get to bed.
Musa's getting excited talking about the Lions. Look at him. He's animated. He feels, he feels that little tingling. He feels butterflies inside his stomach. It's like he's ready for week 1. The boy Graham Glasgow is coming to Detroit, which is a big deal for Musa especially. And everybody. I think it's a big deal for the Detroit Lions as a whole, but most importantly the offensive line. Because they're gonna use him as a very strong asset for that offensive line.
Very versatile as well.
Yeah, very versatile, very quick on his feet, and he's going to be needed because we're going to need protection in the backfield. And there's a lot of movement going on, a lot of players going on. I call it the player carousel going on with all the trades going on in the NFL. It's a lot going on, man.
I mean, with that team, with that line, anyone can play running back and get 5 yards. I can't remember who was saying in the Discord, but they were so excited. Like, with this line, anyone can run for 5 yards. And I hate to, I see it. I agree with that. I'm probably biased, but it is a really scary looking line. And then all the players have added on defense. They're fixing all the holes. They fixed most of the holes, and they still have a whole draft ahead of them.
Yeah, there's a lot to happen still, man, and we're seeing a lot of moving parts. I think the biggest thing that we can see out of the changes that we've seen thus far, and we're just scraping the top of the iceberg as far as the changes that have happened, and that are compared to the ones that are to come. But I think what we can see here is we're seeing a organization that is working from within to make sure that they have a strong team, to make sure they have a strong knit group, solid team chemistry, a team that they can work with, a team that they can grow with. And they're building team stock. They're building team stock with the Detroit Lions, which we haven't really seen happen. And you look at that, the last 6-7 weeks of Detroit Lions football, and it's a completely different team than you've seen, the first half. So there's a lot to be proud of if you're a Detroit Lions fan. If you're following the Detroit Lions, there's a lot to unpack, and it's a very complex team. It's a lot of complex stuff going on. It's like the Wild West. There's just a lot going on. But I'm excited to see what can happen with the Detroit Lions, and I'm not going to say it, and I don't think I can ever say it, but maybe I will someday. And I'm seeing myself morph into somebody that can really appreciate what the Detroit Lions are doing and what they are, growing into. And that might sound like, oh, John, you're being a bandwagoner. Why would you even say that? But the reason is there's a lot of complex pieces, and it's important to study those pieces, and it's important to see and study where this team came from to where they finished off in the 2022 season, going into the new year even. You can say into 2023. I call 2023 the season upcoming, but you can see where they grown and developed, and you just wanted nothing more than to see them make it to the playoffs and at least test their luck at a round 1 game. Just to get out of that round 1 game, you do that, you're already making history.
Even if obviously it's all speculation, but I think if they make the playoffs, they're going toe to toe with these teams. They can make it a few rounds in, make it maybe to an NFC championship. I don't think that was unrealistic if they actually made the playoffs.
Yeah, it wasn't. I think an NFC championship, an NFC North championship, at least a region championship. That's very reachable this year.
I think this year. I think this past year they could have reached it, not won it. But I think this year, I think they can really win it.
Yeah, it's wide open for him to win it. I wish I had Ellis on here. Ellis, our guy over in the GSN headquarters. He's a big-time NFL guy. Hopefully he's on the next pod to talk about the Detroit Lions. And he's a big Hutchinson fan too, so I know he'll get along with Musa great. And he's one of the GSN guys. He's one of the Gin guys, so he's gonna mesh with us quite a bit on this show. I know he'd click on all cylinders on this show. He would thrive on this show, so we're looking forward to having him on, another GSN NFL insider. And, I'm sure he could share a lot of expertise on the Detroit Lions, so hopefully he's on next time. But either way, there's a lot of development going on with this team. There's a lot of stuff happening behind closed doors that hasn't really been released to the public yet.
I just wish we had Hard Knocks this year. That's my only regret.
This is the year you got to have Hard Knocks. I guess you could take look at that as a case study, and look at the team in that Hard Knocks film, that documentary series. What does that team look like in that film compared to what they look like now? I think the team can grow a lot from watching themselves on film, seeing them in impromptu moments, seeing them when they don't know they're being filmed.
I just want that to be like that fly on the wall right now in the Lions facility.
Oh yeah, I'm sure a lot of people do.
Seeing that competition,
it's fierce, man. And it's never been. You really never had a Detroit Lions team to exit the season, unless you're going back to the Barry Sanders era, where you can look at the Detroit Lions team and be like, damn, I'm really hopeful for this team. Before it was all blind faith. It's like, oh man, I hope the Lions do good. I hope they draft someone good. I hope we fill the spots that we have voids in. But now you have something to build off of, and you have something to be happy about because you have that momentum going into this season from last season. And I think that's a lot to hold your head up high about.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, we could go all night, but that's why we're going to have a dedicated Lions episode.
Definitely. Yeah, thanks for cutting me off there. I needed it. But yeah, we'll leave it at that, guys. Musa, you got any final thoughts, final words for the people since we're in the off-season mode for the DCP?
No, we'll be keeping track of moves here, and once we have enough, I feel like enough moves that are significant enough, we'll be back to share our thoughts and break it down for you guys.
Yeah, definitely. It's important to note where we're at with the DCP. A lot of stuff going on in the off-season, but we got to pick and choose what we cover because we got to make sure we're allocating our time very wisely to the most pertinent topics, the most important things happening in and around the league. And there's a lot to unpack with a lot of different things. So we're making sure we're diving into the topics that are being researched and being, awaited the most. So it's exciting. It's an exciting time. Looking forward to the upcoming season. Fantasy football, obviously, it's something that's very missed going into the summer. We're not even in summer yet, but we're looking forward to fantasy football. I know a lot of people are. We're still getting through March Madness. Brackets are shattered. Got the Final Four starting this Saturday, so a lot of excitement there as well. A lot of stuff happening in the world of sports. Opening day was today for MLB. You got Euro qualifiers going on in Europe for soccer. And it's a lot of sports going on. We're approaching the sports eclipse. It's coming up, so be ready. Be ready for it, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to plug the GSN Challenge for the premier golf outing, the golf event, two-man scramble, grow the two-man for the Gin Sports Network, and it benefits the Thomas Smith Memorial Foundation, a very good foundation that promotes heart health and heart research for ailments and different undiagnosed heart issues in young teens, adults, and athletes. So make sure to give that some love and sign up before the deadline. You still have quite a bit of time, but don't wait. Get signed up. All the links are in our link tree. It's in the descriptions of everything. So get signed up and join the event of the summer. Look forward to having you out there. But for now, I'll leave it at that. Check us out online. Check us out on ginsportsnetwork.com. Check us out on our socials, IG, Twitter, all that stuff. Everything's in the bottom of this podcast in the description. So check it out, and we'll see you guys on the social media sphere. But for now, I'll leave it at that, guys. Thank you so much for tuning into Double Coverage, the premier NFL podcast of the Gin Sports Network. I'm John J. II here with Musa Basal. Have a great night.